Hi there honeybees. Today I'm going to tackle a very important subject. And the reason I'm going to be talking about creating healthy relationships today is because a lot of the time when I help people through a process of self-love and when I encourage people one-on-one in my mentoring sessions, in my counselling and readings, to put themselves first more of the time, those people then usually come to realise that a lot of the changes that they've got to make are changes within the dynamics of their existing relationships with people. Romantic relationships, familial connections, friends, even associates at work. Basically they find that a lot of the boundaries that they need to reassess and a lot of the habits that they need to change so that they can be more self-loving are habits that exist within the framework of relationships which already exist in their lives, and that can be really tough. I totally get that it can be awkward, I totally get that it can breed some bad feeling and it can lead to some misunderstandings, but it is also potently important for the self-love journey. So hopefully some of these tips and ideas and thoughts can really provoke something in you today. Maybe they'll lead to some shadow work on your part or just some realizations of things that you might want to consider as you move ahead. Before I go ahead and talk about what I had planned for this video, I want to talk about something spontaneously. I want to mention something a little bit off the cuff that I think it's important for me to talk about in terms of my relationship with my audience members and subscribers, people who watch me. 99% of the communication that I receive in the comment section underneath my videos or in emails or on social media is astoundingly positive and productive and lovely, and I really appreciate that. I think that it's so nice and it's such a privilege to receive positive feedback for what I do and to experience slices of people's journeys when they tell me that videos of mine have helped or made a difference to them and have kind of enabled them to overcome depression or anxiety or a controlling relationship, whatever it is, or help them to introduce themselves more to magic and witchcraft in a way that makes sense to them. All of that stuff is so cool and I really appreciate it. However, in the last couple of weeks, I have noticed a rise in criticisms that people have, not really about the things that I'm teaching or the way that I'm putting things across in my explanations, but actually just about me and the way that I present and the way that I am on camera, and basically either asking me directly to make changes, telling me quite forwardly and directly to make changes, or basically just heavily insinuating that I need to rethink the way that I am and the essence of my character. So I just want to state for the record that I'm in a self-loving relationship with myself. I love myself so much and I've had to do a lot of work to get to this point on my journey. And as a result of the conviction that I have for my self-loving path forwards in this life, I don't succumb at all to demands on my time or criticisms of my nature, my character, the way I look, the way I dress, the way I speak, etc. If there is anybody out there who finds themselves troubled by the fact that I say fuck on camera, or the fact that I occasionally drink on camera, or the fact that sometimes I speak quite animatedly or I speak quite quickly, or I'm quite verbose and quite speedy in my delivery of speech, then you can rest assured that there is no way that I'll be changing these kinds of things. They're things that I've always done on my channel. That's the way that I am, and I try to bring the essence of my authenticity to this channel because I think that's the only way I can teach the kind of content that I'm actually putting out there. I think it's the only way I can give of myself in an honest context. I don't think it would be right to polish myself and try and present as a different person whilst talking about things like my own journey, the pain that I've been through, the techniques that I've learned, and how you can put them into play through your own challenges and difficulties. I think it's really important to level with people in an authentic way when you're talking to them about that kind of thing. There are some people out there who really need to think about the essential nature of what they are asking a person to do or demanding that a person does when they are offering free content to the world, when they're offering free thoughts and free resources to the world. And I definitely think it's important to refrain from demanding or requesting anything of a person which is actually just requesting that they repress their authentic selves. I just think that's so important. And there are so many people making awesome resources about shadow work and self-love. If I'm not your cup of tea, then you don't have to watch me. That's absolutely fine. There's loads of other people on the internet that you can watch and I won't be at all offended. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch my public service announcement. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. Focus on being whole within yourself. Focus on enjoying your own company. Focus on being interested in your own thoughts, interested in your own ideas, your own feelings. This is so important when it comes to having a decent relationship with other people and working out what your boundaries are with other people. Because if you're experiencing codependence with another human being, if you're convinced that you need another human being, you need their company, their time, or their validation, then it's likely that you're going to sell yourself short. It's likely that you're not always going to be able to put yourself at the top of your list of priorities. And as a result, you're probably going to end up placing somebody else's needs far and above your own, and that's not healthy for either of you, and it doesn't create a healthy relationship dynamic. In the past, when I've talked about creating healthy relationships, when I've written about it on my blog, etc., I have definitely made mention of the fact that it's okay for you to figure out in your mind what you feel you're entitled to from a relationship that is respectful and healthy and equal. It's okay to think about what your expectations are for a friendship or a romantic relationship, no problem. But it's also really important to think about what you expect from yourself in terms of how you treat yourself, what you actually want in terms of the relationship you have with yourself. Because actually, people learn from the way that you treat yourself how it's okay to treat you. At the beginning of this video, I spoke a little bit about the things that I'm not prepared to change or give up for people that watch my content and enjoy my resources. I spoke about things that I feel are above and beyond the creator and subscriber contract that I'm in with people watching. I understand there has to be a certain amount of give and take and a certain amount of respect and of course a certain amount of dialogue. However, I'm very clear on where my boundary is, and I'm okay with asserting my boundary and with saying that there are certain things that I expect not to have demanded of me and not to have requested of me, because those things would cause me to have to repress myself so that somebody else's comfort level can be factored in, and that's not fair. That's a form of oppression. And the fact that I'm comfortable to say that on camera is me thinking about how I expect to be treated by other people. But the only reason that I'm confident enough to come out and say that is because that's how I treat myself. I love myself enough to let myself be who I am in the moment and to respect myself as the paradoxical, complex and wondrously nuanced person that I am. And so because I treat myself in a certain way and I support my choices and I give myself that self-loving encouragement that I need, I feel very comfortable to say this is where my boundary is when it comes to other people, and I'm not going to allow that line to be overstepped, and I'm not going to change for somebody else. If you're not treating yourself in a positive way, in a fair way, in a way that involves encouragement and inspiration and love, then you're actually probably very likely to begin to start asking other people in your life to pick up your own slack. You're going to ask people to begin to validate you, to say nice things to you, to give you more attention than perhaps they're capable of giving you. You're going to hope that other people are going to give you the support, the attention and the approval that you are failing to give yourself on a consistent basis. So this is why having healthy relationships with others begins and ends with you having a healthy relationship with yourself. So ask yourself in the coming few days, when was the last time that you gave yourself inspiration? When was the last time you went out there and looked for things to stimulate your mind, to please you, to make you feel more positive and energized? When was the last time you gave yourself words of motivation and empowerment? When was the last time you gave yourself access to resources like articles, blog posts, videos, for example, and books that give you that sense of empowerment and that open your mind to new ways of being and help you to foster a more healthy relationship with yourself? Do you give yourself access to tools like that? Or do you very much ask other people to validate you, to give you those words of love and encouragement? And if those people don't kind of come into your life and give you those things on a regular basis, do you resent them, or do you distrust them, or do you wonder if they're really your friend or if they really love you? It's not fair to ask other people to fill in the missing piece inside of you. It's up to you to fill in that missing piece, and it really starts with taking some time to be with yourself, to listen to your thoughts and ideas. One of my favourite things to do is to take time in solitude, just to go for a walk, to go and visit somewhere on my own, to go do a little bit of shopping on my own, a little bit of treasure hunting in the second-hand stores, something like that, or go down to the beach, go to an art gallery, and just go on my own and court myself, date myself, think about how I'm I'm feeling about the experience I'm having, what my thoughts are, and what's going on underneath the surface of those conscious thoughts, what's going on a deeper level, and just question myself. You know, when you go out on a date with somebody, or you go out to an event with a friend you've only just kind of gotten into contact with and you've only just begun to know, you ask them questions. You ask them questions about their life, you ask them questions about what they think and feel about things and what they're interested in. And that's the kind of thing that can help you to foster a far stronger relationship with yourself, is you need to begin to be interested in your own answers to questions. You need to begin to be intrigued by your life history, by your personal narrative, by what's going on for you. The first rule, I think, of having healthy relationships with other people is to ensure to the greatest extent possible that you are not asking them to fulfill a deep yearning need that you cannot fulfill yourself, that you haven't even tried to fulfill yourself, that you don't believe you can fulfill yourself. You can fulfill it yourself. It takes work, it takes time, but start by going on a date with yourself, you know? Figure out how you feel about stuff. Listen to your own ideas. Laugh at your own jokes. Be intrigued by yourself, you know? Visit your inner world and weave interest and passion and empowerment into your inner life. Try making decisions without having to run them by at least one person in your life. Obviously, it's nice to be able to get advice from people around you, and obviously sometimes we do need to make joint decisions. Of course, that's a reality of life. But I think a lot of people spend a lot of time going around and asking others to sign off on the decisions that they're making, to sign off on the things that they want to do. And it's very empowering to just make a decision for yourself without second guessing the fuck out of it and asking other people to co-sign on what you're doing. It's very empowering to just make a decision, and then instead of asking other people what they think or whether or not you should go ahead, it's really empowering and emboldening to just say, hey, I've made this decision and this is what I'm going to do. There are so many different reasons why people struggle to have a healthy relationship with each other. Sometimes we just meet somebody at the wrong time in both of our lives, where our priorities and our understandings of the world are just not matching up with each other, and maybe there is some form of chemistry, but maybe we can't sustain it because it's too difficult for us to relate to where each other are coming from. Sometimes one person is very, very independent and the other forms a codependent attachment. Sometimes one person is insecure or jealous because of issues they've been through in the past with somebody who maybe was emotionally abusive or cheated on them or something of that nature, and so they project those fears onto the other person that they're trying to have a healthy relationship with, and ultimately, of course, it all falls down because a relationship like that can't sustain itself. If you're in a relationship, a friendship, any kind of connection with somebody right now, and you know that it's not 100% healthy and that things need to change, know that you can only work on yourself. You can only make the conscious decision to change for you and to work on your part of whatever is going wrong. If you know that you need to listen more and not interrupt as much, then you can only do that. But it takes for the other person to open up about how they're feeling. If you're all ears and you're trying to listen, but the other person is clamming up, there's nothing that you can do about that. You can gently encourage them, but they need to make the decision to come forward and be open. If you know there's a jealousy issue in a relationship you're in, then you can only do your part to work on your jealousy and to take your foot off that gas and to try and be much more accepting and allow your partner or your friend to have other connections. But the other person has to do their work too. You cannot do their work for them. And it's very important when you love yourself to really come home to this fact that you can only do your part of the legwork, and the other person has to be prepared and capable of showing up and doing theirs. Now, first of all, what you need to do obviously is communicate with each other and try to find a little bit of common ground on what you both can do to be constructive about making the relationship healthier. Then you begin to work on your part of it. But it's so important for you not to blame yourself if the other person consistently goes back to their old habits or their old ways of being, and you find that they are not prepared to make the changes that they need to make for the relationship to improve. Know what your part of the equation is, and agree to work on that, and agree to work on that diligently. The other person's consistent behaviours and tendencies need to be dealt with by them, and if they struggle to find ways of changing those behaviours, or if they point blank refuse to see those behaviours, that is not your fault. And sometimes we need to make the self-loving choice to walk away from a connection where there's no compromise, where we are doing all of the legwork and the other person is not agreeing to even look at themselves. In the self-help and personal development communities, there is a lot of talk about leaving toxic friends or toxic relationships behind, being aware of friends who are manipulative, or relationships where you're being used, or those kinds of things. Freeing yourself, emancipating yourself from people who are a drain on your energy, a drain on your emotional resources, expect you to do way too much for them. I think a lot of this dialogue is super helpful and very important, but I do think that there is some damaging stuff sometimes in some of the dialogues and resources that I see. My personal point of view is that you don't need to feel inspired and energized and super joyful after spending time with somebody. You don't need to feel that way every time you spend time with somebody. If you walk away feeling drained by a conversation you've had with somebody, feeling frustrated by a number of discussions you've had with somebody, or even just feeling low because you've had to help somebody deal with their low point, that isn't necessarily a reason to walk away from the connection. It doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship is intrinsically damaging to you. All relationships go through their ups and their downs, they go through their peaks and their troughs. Sometimes we do need to talk about the nature of the relationship and how we think it ought to change for the better. We do need to talk about copping to our responsibilities within the framework of a relationship. Or sometimes we do really need to just help somebody through something that could be ongoing, like bereavement or a mental health issue. Realism is very important if we want to sustain relationships and help them to deepen and grow. We can't expect every single conversation we have with a person and every single stage of our relationship with a person to be stardust and roses and Fruit Loops and My Little Ponies. That's not realistic. There are definitely going to be tough times, and that's not necessarily a reason to jump ship all on its own. We have to take it on a case-by-case basis, and we need to tune into our sense of what is really best for us. If the relationship makes you feel bad constantly, then it's not self-loving to keep fostering that relationship, okay? If you feel diminished on a consistent basis, if you feel negative about yourself consistently after spending time with somebody, if you feel less than after you spend time with somebody, if you just feel like you are not good enough, like you are not significant, then you seriously need to rethink the importance of keeping that relationship in your life. Of course, we help people through dark times in their lives, and of course sometimes people frustrate us because they don't factor us in, they behave selfishly, they do things that are inconsiderate. I do things that are inconsiderate sometimes. I'm sure I behave selfishly. I know people in my life that have been friends of mine for a long time have behaved selfishly from time to time, and we've discussed it, or we've not discussed it, but we've moved on from it. I can appreciate another person's point of view. It's not as though I need to cut somebody off the very first time that they aggravate me or frustrate me or disappoint me. But I've learned how to identify patterns, very much so, and I've learned how to tune in with how I feel on a consistent basis after spending time with somebody, after talking with somebody, and that's what really counts. And that's what I mean when at the beginning of the video I talked about solitude, about tuning in with your own feelings and thoughts and ideas. It's not just about making sure that you are inspired and you enjoy your own company, it's about listening to your deepest insights. That is a huge part of what it means to have healthy connections with others, because when you tune into your intuition, you know the fucking difference between somebody who's consistently diminishing you, consistently manipulating you, and then somebody who is going through a difficult time and genuinely cannot see the damage that they are doing. And maybe then you need to talk, you need to be assertive, of course, you may need to have a discussion, but they're not the same things, and it's using your insight and being honest with yourself that brings you to that point of knowledge. And if you use tarot or oracle or any kind of divination system, if you use journaling, if you use creative exploration in order to help you to reach those insights about your relationships with other people, good, use that thing, do that stuff. That shit is magic. That will help you get to the bottom of what's really going on. Having a healthy relationship with another human being is about falling in love with who they really are and being interested in who they really are, and knowing at the beginning that they are going to be nuanced and they're going to be complex. One of the key things that is such a problem for us when it comes to creating healthy relationships with others is that we fall for their archetypal essence that we see in them, that we project onto them, that we first identify in them. And that's never going to be the whole truth of who they are. We struggle a great deal to get to know people more and to go deeper with a connection with somebody, because we unearth lots of other layers. We unearth stuff that was not immediately apparent when we first met them. Even if we crashed into them hard and we started to have a really deep and meaty connection with them, a lot of that initial hype and a lot of that initial intrigue was still based on us projecting an archetype onto them, an idea of what we think they are. And the idea is never going to be the same as the real deal. If you are struggling in your connection with somebody right now and it's just not feeling healthy, it's not jiving, it's not popping, then I would ask you to sit down and seriously consider, are you still expecting that person to live up to the initial impression that you had of them, or the main archetype that you think they represent? And ask yourself if that's fair. Likewise, as a result of listening to this part of the video, you may very much realise that there is somebody in your life who is expecting you to live up to their impression of who you are, and actually they are failing to appreciate your complexity, your polarities, your spectrum of thoughts and your spectrum of beingness. Be honest with yourself about these things, journal about these things. Having healthy relationships with other people is part of having a healthy, self-loving relationship with you. Thanks for joining me for another Self-Love September video. Much love and self-love. Blessed be.
Mm-hmm.